And we totally support our sheriff and law enforcement and everything, of course. I mean, they're amazing, and I'm sure that we have some in our family, law enforcement, and it's just a job like no other. And so with the sheriff himself, to understand that every county, all 58 counties, has a sheriff, and they are supposed to be the highest authority, the highest sovereign in the county, and then the district attorney, and then, yeah, so the ones that are elected officials are the ones that carry sovereignty. And so anyone that's been appointed, I mean, this is all being investigated right now. There's been like a shell game that's gone on during the night. While we were sleeping, things were shifted and changed. And so with 58 counties, 40 of the sheriffs are currently voted in and sovereign. 18 of them have conveniently been appointed because the previous sheriff may have been encouraged to go ahead and retire early with a possible $40,000 bonus or 32 or whatever. And so everyone's kind of discussing it now. We brought it up at the Board of Supervisors meeting and just say, okay, now our sheriff, is he here? The highest authority in our county, right? And so we're bringing it up for discussion, and suddenly everyone's like, do we need to check on that? Do we really have highest authority? Do we really have sovereignty? Do we need to have a vote and make sure our sheriff is voted in? I mean, what's happened and why has it happened? First of all, why did they want to take authority and power away from our sheriff? That's what's really curious. Because when we go and we have a governor that suddenly is not following the Constitution, who's going to hold him accountable? Who's going to hold his feet to the fire and say, whoa, Nellie, get back here? The sheriffs are the ones that are supposed to be doing that. And now with this curfew thing, like Ron said, that's what's happening. So we had a Zoom call this morning with all of our county chair people from all the counties a part of New California. It was an emergency Zoom meeting, and just getting a tally, okay, what sheriffs are enforcing this curfew and which ones are not. And so we got a really good number, a really good tally going forward. And so all this is being used to clarify who's on first. I mean, I actually said that at the Board of Supervisors. I said, I'm asking you this question. I'm saying who's on first and what's on second, and I don't know who's on third, and it's just going around and around in a circle. And so they told me, oh yeah, sheriff has the highest authority. I said, okay, well, we're still researching that. The jury's still out on that. But we really want to know because we want him to have the highest authority. We want that greatest support for him.
Yeah, I truly believe that where Gavin Newsom lives, that sheriff has authority over his freedom. If he's unconstitutional, which he is, you know, we're calling, our grievance is called for his arrest. And we're you know, praying that our president, Donald J. Trump, steps in and does an insurrection and arrests the man. But I believe that our sheriffs could do the same. You know, he does business in California, he does business out of Sacramento, and yet he's unconstitutional. And he has supposedly taken an oath to support the Constitution and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And all of our people that have positions here in Shasta County have also taken that oath, that we will, to the best of our ability, support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. So it's a pleasure to do that, and it's a weighty thing. And he's soon going to, we talk a lot about, you know, if you're in a runaway car and you're going down a dead-end street, you better figure out how to shut that thing off or get out of it somehow, some way, because when it hits the end of the wall, that's not going to be pretty, and that's what's going to happen to him. And he's playing his deuces like aces, and he thinks no one can stop him because he has a aunt named Nancy Pelosi, and she's been working hard to get a $3 trillion bailout for him so that he can get bailed out. Well, Trump says no. Sorry, you're not going to get it. And even now, even if something were to happen, they have to vet it for a particular amount of time. He's going to be up against February. He's not going to get it. So it's really quite exciting what we're living in today. You know, when you think about the votes that have been stolen, the Dominion software, the hardware, the counting of the votes, counting of the ballots, and how they take a picture of it and then they get rid of the picture so that there's no backup. It's an amazing thing that's going on right now in our midst. And it's an incredible coup d'etat that they are trying to take our country from us.
And just to get back to the sheriff and the county board of supervisors, once we learn something, this COVID has been a gift in some regard, and we see it as a gift because of it's been very inconvenient, but it was an answer to our prayers as far as getting our oldest daughter out of Hollywood. That's what I see. Suddenly, she went down there when she was 19, and she just had some wonderful experiences and hard experiences, but she's been down there for quite some time, and we're like, God, how are we going to get our daughter out of Hollywood? She's just really trying to make it big, and she'd been in some movies and some films, and she's wonderful and talented and amazing, but when that happened and everything locked down and suddenly Hollywood closed up and everyone went into hiding, she's like, you know what, I think it's time for me to leave. And we're like, you think so? And then she couldn't get out. She was going to try and fly to Washington, and her fiance, and now she's engaged and getting married the week after Christmas. So it's just amazing. So good things can come out of hard situations. But for me, as I started learning what's going on with our Constitution and then our voice here locally, we have to be able to speak up to our elected officials. And so on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m., we've been going before our County Board of Supervisors, hi Jack, and then be able to talk with them about what they are and are not doing to represent us well. We have to remind them that they work for us and that they are limited in what they should be doing as far as locking down our businesses and different things. So with that, I learned a little script, and I went before them and said, and the sheriff was in the room, and I said, I am a mom and a CCW carrying grandma. And there's only one thing I'm afraid of, and that's the people in elected office taking away my rights. I'm not afraid of the crook that's going to come to my door, because if my dogs don't get him, I will. And it's my job to defend myself. It's not your job to protect me. It's not your job to defend me. It's your job to protect the Constitution and protect my rights to defend myself. And this is the responsibility that we grab back, and don't expect our president to do it for us. What did he say when he was inaugurated back in 2017? He says he's taken the power away from Washington and given it back to we the people. We the people. It's just like, yay.
Another question. Somebody got a question?
Yeah, feel free to come up to the mic. Anybody? This is a wonderful, easy opportunity.
Gun sales have been higher than at any time
Gun
in history.
sales.
Every month it continues and goes greater and greater. People are buying guns for a reason. In the New California website, there used to be a part of it there for signing up to be a part of the Patriots militia. And my question is there plans for the militia? Has there been put anything in place, organized, preempting a catastrophic event that would require patriots to come to the fore? And even for a black robe regiment to stand up again, things like this. Has that been put in place? And if it has, great. If it hasn't, why not?
That's a good question.
There is organization in regards to the militia, and we are in the process of developing that. I think some of it is happening in many of the counties. It's happening, and so if anyone is interested in that, they can go on newcaliforniastate.com or ncs51.com and sign up to be a part of the militia. And a lot of that is timing. I know that we hear a lot of different things that we can't verify, and we're very careful about saying anything we can't verify. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And so I think it's kind of amazing. We're actually being protected, I think, from letting this thing get to a boiling point. And, but I do think that the next few weeks are going to be very interesting. And many of us are ready to we're ready to defend our homes. We're ready to defend our rights. And I'm just thankful that our sheriff is allowing us to do that.
And he used to teach CCW classes too before he was sheriff. He's a wonderful man. But also I wanted to remind you too that the First Amendment is in that position for a reason. Because the First Amendment, we need to exhaust it before we go to the Second Amendment, right? And so being able to recapture our freedom of religion, we need to get back in church. We need to be gathering in our churches and continue to communicate our voice, through print, through press, freedom of speech before our county officials. These are things we need to actively be doing so we don't have to slide into the Second Amendment. Now, it's been said that the Second Amendment is valued very much in New California. It's planning on being an open carry with responsibility, because it is our right, it is our duty. And the word right actually means responsibility. So when you read the Second Amendment, it talks about having a well-regulated militia. And I read that and I thought, it doesn't just say you need to have a militia, you need to have a well-regulated. And that comes with responsibility, accountability, and everyone owning up to being able to know how to carry their weapon well, safely, how to store it safely, use it properly for the right reasons. So, Daniel.
Yes. Yeah, I got a quick question here. The lawsuit that was against Newsom, but by Kylie and Gallagher, now they won it, and so if they won, now how is Newsom still able to send out his mandates for masks and for the statewide curfew? Now, how is he able to do that still, being that he overstepped his boundaries in this lawsuit and lost? So how does that work?
That's a great point. That's
like
a great
paper
question.
tiger.
Super question. I think one of the things that's amazing to us is how patient the master rope salesman is allowing people to see how bad he is, how unconstitutional Newsom is.
Explain the rope salesman real quick.
Well, one of the things that Paul Preston says is that, or there's an old saying that says, you get enough rope, you'll get it all wrapped around you and around your neck. My dad used to say that all the time, and I think that's basically what that is that he keeps feeding rope to these people. You would think that he would step in and just take care of business. But as soon as he begins to be heavy-handed, they're going to say, you're acting like a dictator. Now, all of a sudden, we've gone from one dictator to another dictator. And so it's really up to us. So tonight at 10:01 is our responsibility to say, we don't listen to a word you say. We're not listening to anything.
And be visible.
You lost the court case. You're unconstitutional. You might as well pack it up and head home. If you want to go to the Napa Laundry or wherever you want to have a dinner out with everybody else, when nobody is allowed to go out, but he can go and have a birthday party or what have you, meet with a bunch
The French
of people
Laundry.
and friends.
It sounds better if you say French Laundry rather than
Oh, is
Napa.
it French?
Yeah,
Was
it looks
French
better.
Laundry?
It's like a
Was the French
laundromat. No,
Laundry?
it was a nice restaurant.
The Napa Laundry. Sorry about that. That's some misinformation right there.
But it is in Napa, and it's a beautiful place, and it's real eccentric and everything, so the pictures were discovered. But with that, that's a really good question, because don't you sense that it's like a test? Like, okay, yes, he's been disciplined, he's been put in timeout, and then you tell him, okay, now you can't come past this line, and they're like, okay, but you have a child that does, everyone has a child that's done that, they test everything. It seems like he's testing us to see how much we're going to allow him to get away with again and again and again. And so we have to say, no, we're going to open our businesses, we're going to be responsible, and for those with health issues, of course, do what feels comfortable and right, but go by your convictions. And if you sense that your freedoms have been taken away, you're probably right. It happened while we were sleeping, and now we're awake, right? So with this, now it's time for us to be visible and say, no, I'm sorry, no curfew. There's no need for this. This is ridiculous. So we'll be responsible and we'll drive. No one's going to be drinking after 10. We're going to be, I used to tell my kids, nothing good happens after midnight. You need to be home at 11:59. So get yourself home. So this is our opportunity to push back. He's pushing, he's going from red to purple to pink to, I don't even know, it doesn't even matter. So we have an opportunity to push back and say, no, we're putting the flags on our cars and we're going to be driving around. So what they're doing here locally is meeting at the mall and doing like cool April nights. And we did it with the Trump rally, and we drove around Turn Creek and Dana Drive and Hilltop. So just being with fellow patriots and like-minded people and being responsible, peaceful protest, but extending the statement and videotape what you see and experience. We're all going to videotape it, and we're going to send it over to New California. New California was asked to do this, so the White House sends a message and say, you might want to get all your counties together and go ahead and be visible. So this is our opportunity to not be home sleeping and to say, no, we're not going to let our constitutional rights be taken. Sorry.
It's of no consequence what he says. That's really what it comes down to. It's of no consequence.
He ignores the Constitution, so we get to ignore him. I say that over and over. So, Alan, do you have a question?
Yeah. Yes. Beings that Governor Newsom and Aunt Nancy and the Gettys and the Feinsteins and the whole California mob boss crime syndicate family is so big on reparations, I'm reading. I'm wondering if when Squaw Valley and that lands in New California and he's still in old California, if he's going to be made to pay reparations for Squaw Valley that they took just 100 years ago, not 200 years ago. Is there any design maybe in the future for making right the wrongs of the past 100 years from that family?
That's an amazing question. That's very, very good.
It's commonly talked about,
and
yes.
It's a very broad question too, because they're into water rights and all that sort of thing, water sales, water brokering, and that is all going to begin to unravel. Yeah. And they're going to be de-seated or asked to vacate. So anything that has been done, and there's been the executive order with anybody that's had any connections whatsoever with any kind of trafficking, child trafficking, anything that's out of control
Crimes
in that
against
regard,
children.
crime syndicates, any of that, that's all going to be confiscated. That income is going to be confiscated, their assets will be confiscated, and they will probably be confiscated.
And the billions for the train and for Jerry
nowhere.
Brown's fracking land and all of that as well.
Absolutely.
All this has been
Absolutely.
discussed, and they've come out in grievances actually too. So that's you're on it. You're on it. Very good. Thank you, Alan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so
Thank you
good.
for the question.
Basically, common sense. Anything that seems common sense is going to be reestablished again. Stuff that doesn't make any sense, because it used to be that before the legislature would meet 1 month out of the year for 2 weeks.
2 months.
2 months out of the year. And then they changed it in 1964 with the Reynolds versus Sims, and then suddenly they're full-time, and they're meeting year-round, and so thousands and thousands of bill and money, and just, it's just been awful. So all that gets to stop. So the hemorrhaging gets to stop. So thank you.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm kind of curious because I've been hearing about the state of Jefferson, and I'm very new to hearing about New California. So in brief, I would like to know what the difference is and what makes this so much better in brief.
Thank you for that question. Thank you.
Well, Jefferson is respected by us. It absolutely is. In fact, Paul Preston, our president of our movement, was a Jeffersonian, he says, and he was a part of that movement in the leadership. But what he began to see, because they've been at it for such a long, long time, and I don't want to cast any disparaging remarks upon them, but the way we are moving forward, and we have moved forward because we're following exactly Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution that our forefathers set out and said, hey, if you have a tyrannical government that begins to rise up in one of these states, you can separate from that state. And so it was very, very clear. Now, if Jefferson would follow that, they would have the Constitution behind them. But I believe that we are following it to the letter as much as we possibly can, and we're following the example of West Virginia. So I don't know if you know about West Virginia, but what West Virginia did when Virginia seceded from the Union and said, we're going to go with the South in the Civil War, West Virginia said, no, we're not going to be a slave state. We want to stay in the Union. And so if they were going to follow Article 4, Section 3, they had to go to the legislature. And that's really the difference between us right now. We go to the legislature. It's not put up for a vote. It's not put up to the court system, through the judicial system. It's gone to the legislature. And it's very clear that you go to the legislature, get permission from the legislature, then to go to the Congress. And that's exactly what happened in West Virginia. But when West Virginia, just kind of complicated, and just give a little background, is that when they went to the Congress, they said, well, we don't have Virginians left. They're part of a whole nother movement. They're seceded. They're not even a part of what we're doing here in the United States. So there was a guy by the name of Pierpont who stood up and he said, well, we need to have
Francis Pierpont.
We need to have a new organized government of Virginia. So he said, I'll be the governor. And I don't know what the guy's name was, but hey, Bob, will you be the Secretary of State? And will you be the... And so they said, yeah. And so they said, well, will you hear us? And they said, yes, we'll hear. And the Congress looked at him and said, this is a sham. This is not... And so they appealed, and they said, no, we're not going to hear you. So they appealed to President Lincoln, and President Lincoln came and he said, they can set that up. And so he recognized them. They were then recognized by the Congress, and they said, okay, we will hear you. Because you've stood up and said you're going to be the new reorganized government of Virginia, so we will listen to you, and we say you can go to the Congress. So when they did, they formed the new state of West Virginia.
And it's been about 5-6 years since New California came away from the Jefferson movement, and Paul Preston realized that there's three, branches, executive and judicial and legislature. And so of those three, like you said, legislature is chosen as the means to go by, but Jefferson was stuck going before the court system, and they've gone there so many times to the judge, and the judge would say, let me think about it, no. And so they just continue on the dead-end street. And so they guess they've been doing this since maybe 1946, 48. It's been a long time. So we know there's very good people that maybe not understanding that they are stuck at a dead-end street. And we're hoping, because we believe we all want the same thing, and to have an outcome that brings a solution to our state that's a win-win. We certainly don't want to pull away from the urban areas and that they would just go into utter destruction. We want it to be a win-win as far as financially, with resources, that we can make the resources work for everybody in the state, and it wouldn't be monopolized and taken, and used for
the ruling that
purposes.
is always given by the judges when the Jefferson goes, they say, well, what you're asking is unconstitutional.
And
So
they know
no,
this.
the answer is no.
I know.
It's just that simple.
Mhm.
This is not supported in the Constitution.
It's like
So if we're-
Newsom.
And Newsom he's outside the Constitution, so eventually the pressure on him is pretty amazing, I believe, right now. We heard that he was vacationing in Hawaii and trying to get out of the heat, but the bottom line is he's in the middle of it. He's in the cooker. And with his, it's only, his edicts are only as valid as we allow them to be. We are he actually works for us.
That's right.
We don't work for him.
And we're sworn.
He doesn't have that kind of control.
Right. And because we are clothing ourselves with the Constitution, and we feel this every day, the confidence that we have to get up and put our constitutional boots on and our constitutional jacket on, and we are built with confidence and fully convinced that we're doing the right thing. Where other people, when it talks about our governor, the emperor has no clothes, it's really true. It's shameful. And that he is being completely exposed as far as what he's done with the money and all kinds of other things that are going to come out. And he will go to prison. He possibly, well, even worse than that, I'm not going to say. But as we say these things are coming out, it's going to be shocking for people to realize what's been going on all this time and how we've been so lied to, but especially what's been happening with the children. And our president the most amazing, him and his wife, because they were approached by the generals years ago and knew that this needed to happen, that the corruption was so bad worldwide, and that they needed a president that would be willing to step in and fight and expose all of this corruption. And so he went back to Melania when they considered running for president, and she said, they may kill us, but we have to do this for the children. And that is the most powerful thing, and that's what I believe is going to bring all movements together. I believe it'll bring all parties together. It'll bring all races and cultures together because we're doing this for the children.
One of the things that I think is just so powerful, I mean, that lady is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
She is no joke.
Melania,
Yeah,
our first
Melania
lady.
Trump,
Yes.
our first lady. When they had the 4th of July dedication, you know, there in
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore in North Dakota, South Dakota.
South Dakota, but it
South
was actually
Dakota.
the 3rd of July, but that's okay.
So the bottom line was, I don't know if you remember seeing her dress, but her dress was made of
White
it was
with,
white with little children's handprints on it.
actually, no, it was children's drawings.
Her drawings?
Mhm, from their therapy sessions.
What she just said.
Well, finish. You couldn't say it from your perspective. You know, when
But it's
children,
really quite amazing
Yeah.
because when we think about that, when we think about the power that we have to change our future, it lies in the protection of our children.
That's right.
And that's one thing Patty and I have dedicated our lives to in foster care, in group homes and things like that. And we've dealt with some of the worst abused kids that you could ever imagine. And we all have that concern for the kids. So we thank God for allowing us to be a part of this army.
We believe that the highest perfect religion is this, to just widows and orphans in their distress, to visit them.